Hello, everybody. Today I'm going to be talking about the importance of creating a death plan. Imagine that a family member of yours has passed away, maybe an aunt, a grandparent, or even a close friend. You get to the funeral some days later, only to find that Grandma Susan was embalmed, wearing makeup you've never seen her wear, a dress that she hated, and being buried in a cemetery far from home. Grandma Susan never wore that lip color. She wanted to be cremated, wearing her favorite leather jacket that she got signed by David Bowie. You'd be upset that Grandma's feelings weren't being respected, but unfortunately, your uncle, her next of kin, didn't know what her desires were. According to statistics analyst Vera Konorin, between 2.5 and 3.5 million Americans die every year, a number that we know increased drastically over the COVID-19 pandemic. It left many millions of American families struggling with these same questions: to cremate or to bury, donate to science or bury at sea. What outfit did Grandma Susan want to rest in eternally? Today, I ask you to consider the truth. Americans need to plan ahead for their deaths to make sure their cultural practices and desires are respected, to prevent financial and planning struggles for their next of kin, and to prevent further emotional trauma for their loved ones in a trying time. The first and most important, in my mind, subject to bring up is that your next of kin doesn't know what you want done with your body. They don't know what your cultural practices and desires are. Many times, people of varying religions will want specific things done with their bodies after death. Do you even know what you want? Many people don't know if they want to be cremated and whether or not they'd want those cremated ashes to be scattered or kept. And then, who would keep them? Where would they be scattered? Would you like to be buried in the ground or at sea, or even now some people are considering space? Would you like to be put in the ground raw, in a casket, or where? Is there somewhere that is culturally significant to you? More modern options have come about in the last few decades, things like aquamation and compost, which have opened a large variety of options for grieving families. Many people don't even know about some of the vast array of artistic capabilities. People can be turned into gemstones or swords with their ashes. This goes beyond just your direct funeral desires. There can be parties. It can be somber. Where would you like those parties to be? Do you want to be embalmed? Do you want an open casket? There are so many things to consider for your next of kin, and those are hard conversations to have, especially when your family is grieving. When your family goes to a funeral home to address the deceased, many of the American funeral homes have gouged costs, especially in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic, and they're not aware of just how much these prices have increased. According to Smart Cremation, a organization in charge of cremation and lowering costs for low-income families, even though the National Funeral Directors Association, NFDA, reports that funeral costs have not increased as fast as the inflation rate, they have still increased by 4.8% since 2022, according to Consumer Price Index data. What does this mean in real numbers? The NFDA reports that an average funeral price with a casket and burial is $8,300, and a median cost of a funeral with cremation is $6,280. This is not a price that most Americans can cough up when so many families are living paycheck to paycheck. Unfortunately, not planning will cause a lot of emotional distress for your family, beyond financial distress. Many people will know the story of Jennifer Gable, a 32-year-old trans woman who, after her death, her father was her next of kin, and she unfortunately was buried in a suit with a name that did not match her driver's license, and had her hair cut off by the mortician. Her friends and family were horrified by her father's decision because she was an adult. But unfortunately, things like this happen often. People don't have their lives respected. And this happened a lot during the AIDS crisis as well, where life partners of gay men dying of AIDS would end up having their family members shipped off and not be able to be a part of that grieving process. So what is the solution for dealing with this drastic and frustrating death experience. The most important thing you can do is talk to your family or next of kin about what you want. The best way to get what you want is to tell people, to communicate. It can be really difficult to have that conversation with people that you love because you don't want to think about a time in your life where that person won't be there. The best way that you can communicate with those people is from a place of love. Tell them about how much you care about their decisions being respected. Tell them about how much they matter to you and how much you want to make sure that that horrible time in someone's life is respected. Then comes the next of kin debate. Do you have a fiance who might disagree from your parents, a spouse that you're separated from but not divorced, parents or children that you don't talk to? You need to make sure that your next of kin is someone who will respect your wishes, because unfortunately, that is not the case for many Americans. The next important thing to do is to get it in writing. According to Caitlin Doty, who is a mortician out of California who advocates for the good death, what you need is an advance directive. You've probably also heard the words living will or medical power of attorney or funeral agent. There's a whole bunch of different options. Healthcare and end-of-life documents can be on the same piece of paper, though sometimes that ranges by state. So you have to pay attention to your country and state and where those rules come into play. Some places have before and after death wishes on the same document, and others do not. Lastly, what Harvard Medical Center officially recommends is that you share these documents. You have to have a copy, and your trusted people have copies. Your doctor or medical professional should also have a copy. If you end up in the hospital, have that advance directive in your hospital charts so that your healthcare professionals know what you need. The original should be kept in a safe space, but everyone should know where that is. It's not going to be effective if it's at the bottom of your tax returns from 2013 where nobody will ever see it. Then you might even keep a card in your wallet so that with contact information for your next of kin, in case you end up deceased sooner, you want people to be able to contact to make those plans for you. In the end, some folks don't care and some really do. While one of your best friends might keep the mindset of, well, I'm dead, I don't care what happens, do whatever you want. Another might have strict religious desires or a dedication to the environment, the military, or fears about the respect of their body in line with their identity. While it can be hard, emotionally exhausting, and a stressful thing to put together now, a death plan can save your loved ones countless hours of stress during your end-of-life proceedings and make sure that everyone feels respected and honored. Don't wait until it's too late to have that conversation with Grandma Susan. Communicate what you want so that you can save the people that you care about from stress and their most vulnerable times. Thank you for listening. I'd now like to open the floor for questions.
How much money do most people set aside for their next of kin to put towards their death plan?
So because that average cost tends to range from $6,000 to $8,000, a lot of that is going to depend on what your end of death time desires are going to be. You need to plan ahead about whether or not you want a burial or cremation or any of the other options and look into those prices. Generally, a good range is about $10,000, but that's not super accessible for most people, which is why there are organizations that you can reach out to that will help with financial assistance in those times for low-income families. Do you have another question?
What's your thought on funerals before someone's dead?
People do throw parties before death. That is a surprisingly common thing, especially in the healthcare industry. That's something that's growing more and more as people want an opportunity to celebrate their loved ones. I think that if you are able to have that conversation with your loved ones and say, hey, this is something that I really want to do to bring everyone together at this emotionally taxing time, then that is something, a growing industry in the funeral industry about celebrating people while they're alive so that you can show that love to them then.
Cool.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time.